Hi, and welcome to the Everyday Board Game Reviews. My name is Daniel.
And I'm Daniel.
And here we're going to be looking at Holotype, the Mesozoic North America.
I'm actually looking forward to this after, playing it. So this is going to be an interesting take on the review. Caveat, just for everybody to know, this was provided to us by Brexwerx Games when we were at the Gama Expo. There was no money exchange. The only thing was given to us was the game.
Yep, that's right. So just keep that in mind when we're reviewing this. We are going to be rating it on 5 different criteria. We try to take our bias out of it. So we hope this review is helpful when checking out this game. But we're going to jump into it. Let's go ahead and begin. Real quick, let's talk about what this game is and what we expected before that.
All right, so the way this game works, it's using a worker placement mechanism. So if you're familiar with that sort of thing, you have that capabilities coming into it, as well as you're basically a group of paleontologists exploring and trying to publish papers on the different dinosaur creatures dependent upon the Cretaceous period, the Jurassic period, or the Mesozoic era. And so you're trying to publish papers and become the most prolific ape paleontologist.
Very good. So, before we get into this, you'll notice this is called our Coin of Doom. If you're familiar with our channel, you'll know what this is for. But I'll go ahead and start. We're going to talk about our first criteria, and that's ease of play. And that is how simple and familiar the mechanisms are, the likelihood to get it to the table, whether it's by the mechanisms or the theme, and is it easy to learn, understand, and or teach. This game, for me, when I was playing this, there's a lot of different dinosaur-themed games and paleontology-themed games that are on the market, and a lot of them are either oversimplified or over-complex, in my opinion. Yeah. I'm looking at a few different ones from Pandasaurus. But this one, I really didn't know much about this game, honestly, when they handed it to us. The publisher told you a little bit about it.
Yes.
And our friend, Tabletop Bellhop,
yes,
was the one who introduced us. So they gave it to us, and I purposefully avoided hearing anything about it, because I'm like, I just want to see what the game is about.
Yeah.
Let's see what it is. This is not personally a theme that I'm attached to. I can appreciate it just fine, but at first glance, I was like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But as far as picking it up, worker placement is a very simple mechanism.
Yes, it is.
It's literally send a worker out, put it on a spot, do the action, and this does that. In fact, not only does it do that, it has multiple boards for different player counts to make that part ramping up. Mm-hmm. One thing that this does differently is that it does a thing that we call worker bumping. I don't know if it calls that in the rule book, but it's effectively what it is if I want to go to a spot that you're at, I can still put my piece there. It doesn't restrict it, but then you get it back, and you don't have to take an extra turn recovering those pieces.
Yes.
I was probably half asleep when you taught me this game, so I didn't have much to it, but I completely understood it. It was pretty easy. I feel like most people would have a pretty good understanding of how it works. Just get the colored cubes, spend them, that's the cost, done. Mm-hmm. That's about all it is. A couple of different spots do different mechanisms. And so because of that, I was pretty impressed by how simple it was. Like, everything you said just made logical sense. The iconography was pretty good, which we'll get more into later. But ease of play, I'm going to give this a Daniel as 1 point.
Yeah, and so coming down to, for me, when we're talking about like the simplicity and familiar, the mechanism, most people that are in this hobby know what a worker placement game is.
Sure.
And yeah, there was like that next level where it's worker bumping. But even when you had to pull all your workers back, there wasn't really a penalty for you either, right, because you got your workers, instead of missing out on getting an action spot, you still get a cube of what you need, a research cube in this case. So it didn't punish you, which is really good. It was really easy to teach this game. It was really easy to learn. Like, you were half asleep and you still figured out the basics of this game as I was teaching it to you. And honestly, you're not a fan of the theme, but I know a lot of people that are big fans of this theme. Yeah. And so for me, I'd have to give this a Daniel as well. It's that quite simply a worker placement at its heart, and it doesn't do too much different other than the workers have their own little powers, I guess you could say, because you start with
like a hierarchy.
Yeah,
right?
You have a hierarchy. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Because you have the assistant, you have the paleontologist, and then you get a graduate student later on that is higher than the assistant but lower than the paleontologist. Yep. And so it works out really well, and I like the fact that there's a certain spot where only the grad student or the paleontologist will go. So it's very simple. I can teach this to non-gamers, and they wouldn't struggle with it too much. So I give it a Daniel as well.
All right. Next topic is replay value. And what replay value is, it does a couple things. First off is the length of time per player and how well does it scale. So does it have a wide range of players? Also, we want to discuss the minimum number of plays for the full experience. Do you see everything right up front? Then it's less likely you'll get it to the table that much. And then finally, expandability. Does it have already existing expansions? And if so, are there more in the talks in the future? Have there been more announced? Or what is there available at the market?
Yep.
Right now, from what I saw, I think there is a couple of smaller expansions, but I think there's other. This is the North American version.
Yeah, this
I
is
think
the base
there's
game.
a European as well.
The European is one of the expansions.
Yeah, so we know that there's at least one. I think there's a few more as
Yes,
well.
I think
like some promos and whatnot.
A couple came through the Kickstarter when this originally kickstarted.
Yeah, so as far as content goes, it has expandability. It's just for more expansions, but not just that. We played it in an hour, or less than that. It was like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah,
I want to say, give or take.
It
And it was about an hour with the teach, and that was with new players. It says 1 to 2 hours on the box. That is like overselling it, honestly. That's too much time. I mean, if you get people even at a full player count of 5 players, five players. I can't see that going over 2 hours if you're actually comfortable with the game.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I give them credit for that. That might put off some people, but I really don't think it would take that long. The turns were simple. It was good. You had ways to maneuver around it. Maybe I was just with our experience that it was easier, but I thought it scaled really well. Mm-hmm. And then the minimum number of plays, as far as that goes, you didn't see a lot of the dinosaurs. There was a lot of different things that came out. Overall, it was pretty good. This definitely gets a point for me as well. So I would give this a Daniel for replay value.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think this was a very, very simplistic game. And I'm just wanting to see what other stuff comes into it by these expansions. It's one of those things that is going to make me go out there and want to buy the expansions for it. Sure. Because it was really intriguing to how this works. And so when it comes to the replay value, again, I agree with everything you said about the length and time. This was really, really quick. I think once we got into the nitty-gritty and you and me kind of understood where everything went, it went really quick. I think it took us longer to teach the game than to actually play the game.
Just about. It felt that way.
And the fact that we didn't see everything. I also really like the fact, and we'll get more into that when we get into the art and production and the meaningful choice and game immersion type stuff. But I also like the fact that it told you a lot of the historical stuff. When we talk about underdog games, we talk about how they make you learn. So they had a lot of stuff in there too. So we didn't see all that, and it makes me want to go back into playing this game and see if I can play some more stuff.
Right.
And so, yeah, I give this a Daniel as well. So right now it's 4 for 4 on Daniels.
All right. Next one is meaningful choice.
And so this one, when we mean meaningful choice, we're talking about the impact on other player strategies, the depth of strategies, the tactics, skills, how good you got to be in this game, and do arbitrary choices or AP make an impact on the gameplay. I love a lot of the choices in this game now that I've got to sit back and think about these kind of things. It does impact other player strategies in a way, and it all depends on the worker that you're placing out. Because, yeah, they can bump you and it takes it out, but they have to bump you with something at the same level or higher to get into that spot where they want to. So if I have a grad student here and you want to go there, you can bump me with any one of your... you have to bump me with either grad student or archaeologist. I love that little tactile play. I'm like, I know he needs something over there. I don't know what's in his hand. But if I put this here, I'm forcing him to use one of his other higher powers. This way I can save my spot for my my assistant. So there's a little bit of that tactical skill. There's not a lot of strategy or tactics really in this game, because when we come down to the arbitrary choices, there is dice rolling. There is a little bit of mitigation in here, and so you're just beholden to the dice rolls. The greens are a lot easier to get fossils compared to the purple. That's the main difference, is that the ratios are a lot more impactful because the greens are less likely to get out on the board. Another one of the meaningful strategies I think does really well is like, does it make more sense for me to put this out there, even though I know for a fact if I do this, you can go over there and claim one of these global rewards? Where is that little push and pull? Because you either can claim the reward fully by yourself and don't have to spend any research for it, or you have to spend 5 research and you claim the tables as a whole. So like the Mesozoic, like if you need to get 5 Mesozoic creatures or Triassic creatures or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's that little push and pull, and I made the calculated risk when we played it that I'm going to go ahead and allow you to get those points
Right.
because this is going to give me the third creature I need for this, which would have given me 17 points at the end of the game. And then
Right.
that little tactical strategy right there, and the fact that you do have to make smart plays. It will give meaningful choice because there is a little bit of impact on other player strategy, especially when it comes to how you're blocking the workers. And do I play this out right now, knowing that you can go over here and claim this point? And so that includes my depth of strategy and tactics. Where is the push and pull for me? So it gives 2 out of 3. There is a bunch of arbitrary choices in this one. Yep. Not a lot of AP, so that's good. But because of the dice rolls and you don't know what's going to happen, there's not that much mitigation into it unless you pull a card that allows you to get a re-roll. So for me, I do give it a Daniel in meaningful choice because it wins 2 of the 3 criteria.
And I'm close. While I agree with everything you say, I felt that just because of the fact that while I enjoy the worker bumping aspect of it, I felt like one of the big highlights of worker placement games is the fact that when I take an action, that locks you from the action or locks you from the same benefit. Whereas really, like a lot of times it's just, just do I have a better, slightly larger piece,
Yeah.
And I felt like that lack of restriction, while it was fun, I felt like that took away from impacting the other players. It just made it slightly more of a speed bump. You have to go over to take over with it. But the arbitrary choices, I mean, a lot of it is random dice pull. They do a great job of mitigating that. Like, I think it's a really smart design. Like, for example, when you're getting your dinosaur cards, you pull a certain number based on how good the meeple is that you're sending out. If it's a grad student or a paleontologist, you draw 3 and discard 1. Whereas your assistant or whatever the lower rung is, that only gets 2 and you keep 1. And so it works well, but then also having to choose between like what kind of dice you roll and then rolling the dice on top of that, it definitely doesn't get arbitrary choice for me. And then impacting other players, I felt like there wasn't enough impact on the other players, even with it being worker placement. So this does not get a Daniel from me.
Fair enough.
Right. Game immersion.
And so when we're talking about game immersion, this is the big one for us. Is the game fun to lose? Are you having a good time while you're playing the game, even though you know for a fact you're not going to win? The player interaction, whether you're trash talking, table talking, getting into the role-playing aspect of it, in those stand-up moments that are going to make you shout across the gaming rooms. And for me, I think even though this has a lot of that good stuff, and it is a fun game to lose. I ended up losing that game because I had to do that little push and pull. And I only lost by 2 points rather than more points because I decided to go for those 17 points by getting my third sauropod out there because of my personal goals and stuff like that. I don't think I can give Holotype a Daniel. I don't really feel like I am a paleontologist, so I don't have that role playing in there. I just feel like I'm taking this piece out there and doing this, and I get to do its action. Now, it's cool that the paleontologist and the graduate student in some locations, they have a better ability than the assistant. That's really neat. I like that little twist, but
Sure.
is it enough for me to get into that role playing? And it is not. There are some decent memorable moments in here, but it's nothing that really makes me stand up and go, yes, that was a great move.
Right.
I just had to make a tactical decision to allow you to get 5 points or something like, or
5 points,
5 points or something like that, versus my
more.
17 points or something like that. Because what happens is when you're claiming something, you pull it off the board, and the one that's uncovered is your points at the end of the game.
Right.
And so it's like, do I allow him to get better points? Does this give me a better chance of winning? So, but that's more for the meaningful choice. And the game immersion didn't really give me that stand-up moment. And so for this, I cannot give game immersion a Daniel.
All right. And for me, I agree. There's no memorable moments like when we talk about memorable moments, we expect to be talking about something that happened months, years later. It's like, hey, do you remember this time that happened in this game? And I don't think that our play would have ever had any kind of situation that happened. It's like, and I don't think future plays of it would do that either. Yeah. Any of our plays would not have given that information. But there was a lot of times, I love the hierarchy of the meeples, and I commented when we were playing this, that's my favorite part, is that when you send in the real paleontologist, like, hold on, guys, like, let's move out of the way, let the professional handle it. We were having that silly banter,
yeah.
And we're having that role-playing, like, I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel super hyper-realistic, but the game allows you that opportunity where you get that silliness, and we may or may not have used a couple expletives when kicking off, like the assistant meeple.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, move out of my way, peasant, kind of
Exactly.
thing. And that just got silly, like cheesy moments, and especially when you're flicking their piece off, get out of here, come on now, let's send in the real. And then I do feel like as well, like we live in a highly versatile area when it comes to archaeologists and paleontologists and all sorts of different anthropologists. Like we have a big area.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the stuff that goes on here, like that you're not going to always find what you're looking for. You're going out there hoping to find a lot. Yeah, but realistically, you'll settle for what it is. And I feel like the dice rolls actually do allude to the theme more than the mechanism. Like I know that was my problem with the meaningful choice. It is arbitrary. But again, I don't think that any archaeologists or paleontologists come out here and go, we're going to find exactly 4 fossils. And that puts me off a theme for other dinosaur-themed games.
Yeah.
This, it's like, well, we just had a really bad day in the field. It is what it is. But we had a better chance because the pro was here, and they know kind of what to look for.
So we're going to steal a bone from the museum.
Yeah, so we'll just take that bone, right? Yeah, we'll take that. It's like, oh, Smithsonian, you're not using that, are you? Okay. And it led to a lot of that. So I thought it was fun. It was enjoyable to play. So I am giving this a Daniel for game immersion.
Alrighty.
All right. And now for art and production. And art and production is quite simple. I know that some of this is subjective. We have the art, like the overall look of the game. We try to be as objective as possible, but there's some bias in there, of course. Pieces and components, and most importantly, it's the graphic design. Daniel and I are both colorblind, so we do definitely hold that accountable. With that being said, though, the art, personally, I don't like the 3D the 3D graphic. I mean, it's just, I really don't. There's something about it that puts me off. It looks fine. It's okay. It looks like, I mean, I can't look at this cover and think that this was like any better than maybe like a mid-1980s CG. Like,
yeah. I will say this. The cover art is not all that great.
Yeah.
The card art, it works a little better on the cards.
It works a little better, yeah.
And then the art is different for the locations where you're digging, because I think those are screen caps.
Yeah, those are screen caps, and it's cool that they have information about like what's the general regions. Like that was fine, but I just really didn't like the art that much. I don't know. And again, it's a bias thing, so keep that in mind. If you like this art, cool. That, but I didn't. Yeah. But as far as art or pieces and components, like the actual production value, the dice are fantastic. There's 3 colors of cubes, excluding the research cubes. There's 3 actual colors: green, purple, and blue. And they were bright colored. They didn't quite match the cards or the dice perfectly, but they were enough where it wasn't too bad that you and I couldn't see them.
Yeah, and both of us have the same kind of issue with
that.
So.
Exactly. And a lot of the graphic design that they use, the components were great. Like the multiple boards, I love that they did that. The cards were good quality. The pieces were good. The dice especially great. I love the dice. And the cards were just decent. But the graphic design, the part that really sets it above everything else, is that not having any issues with a color-based game. As a colorblind person, they really tried their best to make it as good as they could be. Now, there is room for improvement. I want you to keep that in mind. Yes. And we discussed that actually with the publisher when we first saw it, because he picked our brain a little bit. There is room for improvement, but I didn't personally have any issues during the gameplay that was significant, and therefore I am giving this a Daniel for art and production.
So when I'm coming at it for the Daniel aspect of it, I'm going to flat out and say the graphic design was really well done. Even though the colors were pretty close, the blues and the purples, we always say, like, if you're going to do something, be very smart with it. And
high contrast.
And I also allow a little finagling that the cards didn't match the dice and didn't match the wood, because these are different component qualities. So something printed on a piece of paper is not going to look the same. Something painted on a piece of wood is not going to look the same as something that is manufactured plastic, which dice are. So as long as they're close. Now, there was another game somewhere down the line that we had a big issue with that. I don't know if we've talked about it or we're going to review it, but there was an issue where the colors on the cards did not match anything with the dice, and it took us a lot to confuse. Yeah. They did a well enough job that this matches perfectly. So for me, the graphic design blows it out of the water and fixes everything. And
I forgot to bring it up, but the iconography is really crystal clear. Yeah. Like we knew which meeples were which and which they were allowed to do. there was not a question. And even like the iconography of like, hey, what is everything? We only had to check one icon. It's when you pull a card from the discard pile.
Yeah.
Everything else was just like, oh, I look at that. Oh, the card has a plus sign. I'm drawing cards.
And then once we understood that, this is just coming directly from the discard pile, we didn't have to look at the rule book again. So
that was the last one.
They did a heck of a job on the graphic design. They did a heck of a job on the pieces and components. I like the fact that the 3 pieces that you get are different shapes, so you know whose is who. So, like, if I pick this up there and I go, I can't move this there because that's a grad student there, so I'm going to move my assistant over here instead. So that's really well done. The cardboard is thick. It's really well done. The different boards. I will give credit to the insert. It's really well done. Everything fits in there. There's rooms to possibly compress all the expansions. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there is enough room from what I'm seeing in there that it can. So I'll give it the components. I agree with you on the art, though. The art is not my favorite thing in the world. It's fine. I'm not a big 3D scan kind of guy, but hey, if there's a budget, there's a budget. It's fine. I'd rather them do something like this than rather using AI art to do things. So, but it's still going to get a Daniel for me because it got 2 out of the 3 criteria. So in total, this is 4 out of 5 Daniels for me.
And 4 out of 5 Daniels for me, giving it a total of 8 out of 10 possible Daniels for Holotype. So, hope you guys found that review helpful. Be sure to, if you need to contact us below. It's in the comments. Otherwise, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.